Samaki. Initially, I went to prison in 1970, and after doing 6 years, I was released from prison. Unfortunately, I went back to prison and did another 38 years when I was released from that one in 2015. So far, I've been out on the streets for about approximately 3 years, 4 years, and it's been. I haven't had no real struggle with it since I've been out, but it's a pleasure to be here for the second Black August that I've shared with the brothers here in Sacramento. I came down previously when Mata was here, and we celebrated with my brother here, and it's just my pleasure to be here for the second year with you guys.
My name is Dadisi. I became a part of the prison movement back in 1976. And when I came to prison, I came to prison with a street gang mentality. And I was introduced to some brothers, they taught me about struggle behind the walls, struggle against the system. I was more inclined to struggle amongst my own people, my own brothers, my own sisters. And I became a victimizer of my own people. When I first came to prison, brothers had told me, do you know what the difference between a homeboy, which gang members identified each other as homeboys, and what a comrade is? And he drew a scenario for me. He said in a crisis situation, when the enemy is on the attack and you're outnumbered, if your homeboy sees this happening, he's more inclined to turn his back on you because he does not have the necessary nervous equipment to withstand that type of test. But he said a comrade is someone who's willing to live with you and die with you. And that resonated with me because as a street gang member and seeing the crimes that we was committing against each other, I realized that we did not have that love, we did not have that unity for our people that we should have had. So he introduced me to a real love. At that time it was a black love. It was a black love in the prison system, because at the time the prison system was very racist. You had a lot of racist white people who were trying to bring harm to the black community. And from the prison guards on down. And that was a test. It was a test that a lot of us did not withstand that test. I learned about George. George was one of the individuals that made the ultimate sacrifice, fighting, defending our people. And people didn't know talking about Black August, the spirit of Black August has always been with us. It might have started in '79, but the spirit was always there because the spirit of Black August is all about resistance. From the Haitian Revolution, to the rebellions in Watts, throughout Tulsa, Oklahoma, the Black Wall Streets. Resistance has always been there. But a lot of us did not have the necessary nervous equipment to withstand that test of resistance. But in the prison system, I was introduced to resistance, and I gravitated towards resistance. I gravitated for humanity, for my people. I tell people that we was not considered black racists. People try to identify, the prison talk about, for the blacks concerned, that we was black racists. No. We had a primary concern for our people. And when crime was being committed by people, a lot of us made the ultimate sacrifice. From George, from Jonathan, from WL, all these brothers made the ultimate sacrifice. So when Katari died in 1978, and he died playing playing football on the basketball court in San Quentin Adjustment Center, he died because of medical neglect. He was committed to the prison struggle. The prison system saw this as an opportunity to destroy one of the individuals that we considered one of our heroes at the time. Someone that we looked up to, the ones the ones we wanted to emulate. And at that time, I was a youngster. These was my elders. So I started doing the first BA in '79. And at that time it was all about sacrifice as far as the meals, the fasting, increasing our study habits. Showing some of the discipline, showing the love for our people, and trying to pull all of our people together. And I tell people today that what George and them done, what Jonathan and them done, that was the ultimate sacrifice. I mean, they experienced hardships. You know, the sacrifice that we made today is nowhere in comparison to what they're doing or what they had done. And these are the type of sacrifices we're trying to tell our people today. I'm saying we need to study. You know, George and them study 10, 20 hours a day sometimes. They exercise 4 and 5 times. They might fast for a whole week straight. You know, we as individuals fast, you know, just for a few hours. I'm saying, and this is a test of our willpower. You know what I'm saying, to recognize those who have made that ultimate sacrifice, and we pay homage to them. You know what I'm saying, they laid down a foundation that we're still trying to build upon. You know, what was happening back then, it still happens today. And this is what we're fighting for, this BA and every other BA. Now, this is my first BA out here on the streets.
Yeah.
In other words, after doing 44 years behind the prison walls, I'm finally out here with the people who I want to be with. I tell people, our struggle was not just the prison struggle. Our struggle was to get people out of them prisons to be out here so they could be doing the right things for our people out here. And when I say our people, I'm not just talking about black folks. I'm talking about all oppressed people, because that's what our struggle is about. You know, we fight for the freedom of all oppressed people. You know, when crimes are being committed against anybody, you know what I'm saying, and it's unjust, you know what I'm saying, we willing to stand up and fight for them. So, you know, black organism, you know, it lives on me, and it ain't gonna never die. So I'm glad to be here today. You know what I'm saying? Because this is I look forward to for 44 years, to be out here to do the real work. Because this is where the work needs to be done. So, you know, thank you.
You know, there's recently a situation that I've been seeing, I've been getting a lot of links on where a city seal ran in the seal, did a midnight raid or early morning raid, and over 200 some blacks that's in the prison system that's believed to be affiliated with so-called prison gang people who have pretty much took the same position that you guys have took. What is it you think can be done now to deal with that confidential informant situation? First of all, could you tell people how the confidential informant, what it represents and what it has done to the prison resistance movement altogether, and how the people how they've been negatively impacted by it? We addressed it last time.
Yeah. For myself, I stayed in solitary for 31 years, not based on any crime that I had committed, but based on allegations of criminal conduct that were made by informants who, for whatever reason, were trying to get out of the hole or get out of prison. But sometimes it's nothing to be sold out. Like we believe we spoke on before, it dates so far back. When you look at our history, you look at the field and the house, and I won't use the N word, but there were field ends and there was house ends, you know, and the mentality was such an extreme. And when you look at the prison system today, we have the same situation where there are those who would say you're out just for the sake of getting a better cell or getting out to prison man line. And so myself and bro, both of us have done over 30 years each in solitary confinement.
You know, when you're dealing with a confidential informant, a lot of people have to realize a confidential informant is not a reliable source of information. He's a tool of the administration. And these informants, they'll say anything and everything that the administration wants them to say. So, one time, they said they received word from a confidential informant that the blacks were going to assault staff on August the 13th. There was nothing on the map that for the blacks to assault staff on August the 13th. But as we all know, the 13th is the day that we recognize WL. You know what I'm saying? They try to use these informants to try to lock blacks down because they recognize that certain individuals that might be supportive of the prison struggle, they might be supportive of Black August, but they try to scare individuals away from being a part of that. So me and him, we both don't experience a situation when it comes to informants. Informants would say that, hey, he's a member of this organization and he's trying to organize the blacks to resist oppression. Okay, it's not a crime to organize anybody to resist oppression. It's not a crime to be a part of a group. But the administration, they label these groups as being gangs. My gang days ended in 77. You know what I'm saying? So I ain't been part of a gang since 77. I have been part of organizations, I have been part of groups. You know what I'm saying? The groups and organizations I've been a part of, they were revolutionary organizations who grew. In these revolutionary organizations, the administration considered to be a threat to the system, a threat to their job security. And when I say job security, if we was not committing crimes and going to prisons, there wouldn't be no prisons. So they welcome us to have that criminal mentality. So if we was out on these main lines selling drugs, committing crimes, they would welcome that because these are the type of individuals they want on the main line. But individuals trying to discourage that type of activity, they use their informants to say, hey, he's a part of this group. No criminal activity. The majority of our 31 years, he did 31, it was not behind we had committed a disciplinary offense. It's because that we gravitated towards people who was trying to do positive things. So when we all got cut loose, eventually in 2014, after the hunger strike, and they started releasing us out to these main lines, to my knowledge, not one of us went back. But once upon a time, we was considered the worst of the worst because of these so-called confidential informants. Like I said, confidential informant is not a reliable source. You know what I'm saying? And they gain favors. A lot of these confidential informants are individuals who are involved in criminal activity. So they welcome them type of confidential informants. But you talking about confidential informants that's telling the truth? Oh no, they don't want that type of confidential informant. So confidential informant is just a tool of the administration. And so when these brothers was recently gobbled up, you know what I'm saying? They say this is some major conspiracy. You know, so what is the major conspiracy? You know, to my knowledge, not one person got a write-up. So if it's a major conspiracy, somebody should be getting rolled up, locked up, and everything else. But they're doing these mass searches, they tearing up people's property, they confiscating phone books, they confiscating pictures. You know, say I do have your phone number. Is it a crime for me to have your phone number? Now, if you can say I'm using this phone number for the purpose of criminal activity, then where's the criminal activity that accompanies me having this phone number? It don't exist. But the administration will put out the propaganda that, hey, these individuals are trying to commit crimes, and you know what? They trying to commit crimes. You know, charge me for a crime if I committed a crime. But competent sources are not reliable sources. So the point is, they don't bring these competent sources to court to testify against you because they're liars. And that's all a competent informant is, a liar of the administration as a tool of the administration to try to bring us down, to try to discourage us and discourage brothers from gravitating towards us, because who want to spend 31 years in the hole? So when the individual says, I ain't associating with him, because they might wind up being victimized like we was victimized, placing them holes for 31 years. Nobody want to do that. Then you got individuals who want to go home. They say, well, them guys ain't going home. So a lot of these company informants who became informants, a lot of them are still there. We're out here, but we're not confidential informants. So, you know, we kept it real all the years. You know what I'm saying? We continue to keep it real. And that's the message we're trying to share with the people out here. You know what I'm saying? You know, some of us ain't gonna withstand that test of time, but some of us are. And we are examples of that.
And also, for those of you who have loved ones that's still going before the parole board, those confidential documents, regardless of how untrue they are, they're being used against these individuals in the parole board. I went to board 15 times in 38 years, and I was denied, not based on the fact that I wouldn't program, I wouldn't go to trade or school, but based on the fact that I refused to debrief and tell on another inmate. And then they would tell me that some confidential source said you belong to this group or that you've done certain things, and I refused to even speak on that. And it got so bad at one point I refused to even go to board, because I'm not going to sit here and even listen to and acknowledge that. But the confidential sources are big in prison, and I think even since I've been out of prison, out here, I work in a transition home, and still I work around parole agents, and I see that they still use confidential sources. Because when I came to the street, they told me that we don't want to hear about you associating in this area, this part of town, that part of town, what they consider to be gang areas. And they basically letting you know, if we find you out on that side of town, we're gonna know it, because basically they're gonna tell us. And it's still happening. It's just on a different level, but it continues to happen out here. And to the point that brothers ourselves are sitting in this room talking about any type of unity, that, you know, that's poses a threat. In their eyes, that poses a threat.
So one more statement. Oh, when I went to board this last time, and they did give me a date, they went on record and told me they had 2,100 pages of confidential information in my jacket. 2,100 pages of confidential jacket. So do you think they wanted to find me not suitable? They could have found something in there for them informants. They could have, but they went on record and they said there's nothing in this record that shows that I could pose an unreasonable risk to society. So they finally came clean on that one. So I had 21,000 pages, so you can imagine 21,000 pages is, I ain't saying it's 21,000 people, but it's quite a few people that they was using against me over all them years. And I'm pretty sure you had just as many as I had in this file.
And the sad part is that we still have loved ones that's locked in prison that's still being subjected to the same thing. In particular, I can name a few brothers like PJ, Yero. These brothers have been in the hole sometimes longer than I was in prison. And I stayed in there just this time, 38 years, 6 months. These brothers been in the hole that long. And the sad part is, PJ came in 1969, and I came in 1970. He's still there. They're still using them same confidential documents to keep this brother locked down. He's getting ready to go to a hearing, and we're trying to get all of the letters together of support to help him at least have a fair hearing, if that's possible in CDC. Because I've sat in the parole board and had parole board members, retired district attorneys, retired police captains that sitting on the parole board tell me, you'll never get out of prison. Keep in mind, I shot a police officer in 1970, and the fact that this happened in 1970, you don't think my mentality has changed from 1970? Now I'm 70 years old, and they're still holding the same documents, and we have brothers that sitting behind those walls. They're still going before these same parole boards, and they're being, you might just say it's all political now. It ain't even got nothing to do no more with the crime you committed in 1969 or 1970. It's about the politics, it's about your belief, it's about your participation in Black August, it's about you educating these young black men on the yard, it's about you sitting down, resolving some of these unnecessary conflicts with Mexicans and blacks, you know, and all of these things, like Russ said, this has a bearing on their job. You know, without us being in there, they have no job. So they continue to, just like we struggle, they struggle too. But their struggle is to keep us in. It's not to get some of these young brothers out. It's to keep them in. And that's a daily struggle with them as well.
I would like to point out, they were talking about confidential informants. The same method that they use to retain brothers in the SHU program for an indefinite period of time, they're now using as a reason to deny them parole. Here's the real contradiction to that. Say, for instance, a lot of these brothers were going to the board while they were in the SHU program. They were using confidential information that was invalid on its face because of the fact, if anybody know about the SHU program, specifically the notorious Pelican Bay SHU, and that's with all SHUs, the program is 23 hours of lockdown and 1 hour worth of activity. Now, your activity consists of, if anybody been to a kennel and seen a dog cage, that's what the activity consists of. These people are basically locked up in individual dog cages, you know what I'm saying, for the purpose to go out there, and that's supposed to be an exercise yard to them. But my point is this here, what confidential information could they be giving them at that time when this is their program? You know what I'm saying? What they're saying, they're going out there trying to saw the dog cages off or something like that, because most times they weren't even together, or they're around people that were adversity, or because the so-called conflict, you know what I'm saying, between the races, which is something that was started by, you know what I'm saying, this prison, this system itself. But my thing is this here, despite the fact that there's, you know, serious legal consequences with confidential informants, and the fact that, you know, you can be placed in the SHU, which they have declared to be unconstitutional. Why do you think that the courts have not stepped in and ceased that practice altogether. I mean, it's an obvious due process matter on its face right there. I mean, the shoe was proven the shoe was declared the way that you guys face it to be unconstitutional. That in itself should have stopped that practice from.
I've challenged that, exactly what you're saying in court.
Mm-hmm.
In my case, confidential, more than one, what they call reliable source, told them I participated in an armored car robbery in 1982.
Mm-hmm.
I was in the yard in Folsom Prison in 1982, but here's a parole board sitting there telling me that I was involved in an armored car robbery in 1982. And I'm telling them, man, you got my record. I was not involved in an armored car robbery in 1982, and I was sitting here in a cell in Folsom Prison in 1982. But nevertheless, they want this type of document as confidential and reliable. So a reliable source told them that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's telling me that we ain't even thinking rational, and that's the type of documentation that we've been held accountable to.
Mm-hmm. Another thing, like I say, we gotta realize laws in the United States are not written in stone. I mean, you got 9 Supreme Court justices, and when they make a decision, they both reading the same law and reading the same case, but they don't come down with a decision, 9-0. They might fold 5, 6-3, but they all reading the same law, so it's not written in stone. Clarence Thomas went on record that a prisoner has no rights. So when you talk about, it's surely unconstitutional, it's unconstitutional in our eyes. It's unconstitutional in the eyes of the masses. But the system itself, I'm saying, they generate these laws. They made these laws. And they could manipulate these laws to mean anything they wanted to mean. So if they wanted to find the shoe unconstitutional, they could have found it unconstitutional a long time ago.
Mm-hmm.
It's something that they choose not to do, because you got to realize they are part of the system. Now, over the years, they have relinquished, they relinquished some of their power and gave us a little bit of movement as far as granting us certain rights. But they restricted rights that they grant, rights that they can take away. So in 1983, because of the two-side decision, they released a lot of people from the SHU, because they said they're being held uncomfortably in the SHU. So the courts is going to hand down a decision. The CDCR felt that, hey, we don't want the court to hand down a decision because they might rule against them, so they started releasing people. So what we call that in prison, they made a preemptive strike. Now the court stepped back and said, well, the CDCR is trying to do something.
Along with that, they used to have this tactic where they would take us, like before they started these long-term SHU programs, if you were considered a gang leader or a political leader, they would take you, like I would be in DVI today. They'll come and just transfer you to another prison. And in the hole, they didn't call it SHU then, they just called it the hole. But I've been in every hole: San Quentin Adjustment Center, 4A, Soledad, O Wing, Casey, K Wing, Palm Hall. And then when they started the new prisons, Tehachapi SHU, Corcoran SHU, on the yard, when they had those gladiator fights on the yard, they just throw you out there. And so you, of course, you're gonna survive. So you're gonna do whatever you have to do to survive. But I'm saying that's the tactic. We'll move you from this prison to that prison. So you come on the yard. I've gotten out of the SHU in O Wing about 8 o'clock in the morning. Before I could put my property on the shelf, the guard is at the door telling me, hey, Mr. Williams, I'm sorry, but we gotta lock you back up. I ain't been an hour. Somebody, confidential source or whatever, between the time I got from O Wing to the cell, they done already sent a kite to the captain, locking back up. And that's the type of tactic, that's what we've been going through for the past 30 or 40 years with this system. At this point, now that they have to let us out of the SHU, who's to say what they ain't down there plotting on right now? Because as you say, they just went through running in all of these brothers' cell in Soledad, Pelican Bay, all these different prisons. And with this COVID thing, we don't know what they're gonna come up with next. But you can believe that they scheming as we speak.
It took for you guys to be able to get up out the SHU to pull an extreme act which was the hunger resistance. I would like to point out to Brother Dadisi right here, 59 days on a hunger strike. To be able to get them out the shoes right here. What made you guys come up with that method right there?
Well, I'm gonna be honest with you. When they first came with the hunger strike, I did hunger strikes before.
Yeah.
And we did not prevail on hunger strikes.
Yeah. Oh.
You know what I'm saying? So I done them in the past. And I didn't think it was gonna work. But I was willing to give it a try. You know, brothers, the black, it's like for like first, the blacks, the whites, the Mexicans, people who was former enemies came together. You know what I'm saying? A common problem, a common enemy. So I said, I'm gonna give them 3 days. I give them the 72 hours because I was supportive of the resistance. But after I did the 72 hours, I said, well, let me go ahead and give them a week. Go ahead and give them a week because I believed in what they was doing. Now, did I feel they was gonna prevail? No, because I had came to the decision that I'm all about winning. You know what I'm saying? But if I'm not gonna win, why should I participate? Just resistance, be resistant. You know what I'm saying? To me, when you hear about when they started, resistance is futile. That comes into play.
Yeah.
Resistance is futile because we resist to prevail.
Yeah.
So my thing is I want to win. So after I did the whole week, I said, well, I'm gonna go ahead and do the hunger strike. And then I'm starting identifying with the reason behind it. The reason behind it, a lot of people felt that we were doing this hunger strike because we wanted out the shoe. A lot of us felt our fate was already sealed. You know what I'm saying? We know we've been to board 15, 16, 17 times, denied parole, so we know we're not getting out. But we at the same time, what we realize is there's gonna be a new generation that's gonna be coming behind these prison walls that's gonna replace us. So Pelican Bay, they spent probably $1 billion just to build Pelican Bay because Pelican Bay, where we was housed at, is a SHU. It's not a main line, it's a SHU. We don't have no mainline program. It's a SHU just to lock people up. So they invested all this money in these SHUs. They're not gonna throw that money away. So as we die off, they're gonna replace these with the next generation. And that is what we feared. That's what we was fighting against. We don't want the next generation, our sons, our daughters, our grandchildren to wind up like us. So that's the sacrifice that we was making at that time. Because we was fighting against a system, that felt it was omnipotent, couldn't be defeated. But then as people started identifying with what we was doing, because I'm saying in the prison system, was at least 30,000 prisoners was involved in that hunger strike. And that's approximately, at that time, like 1/4 of the whole prison population. So can you imagine 25% of the whole American population resisting? 25% sends a powerful message. In addition to that 30,000 behind the walls, there was thousands throughout the United States, throughout the world, participating in this hunger strike. So it started sending a message. It started putting the CDC on blast. People started seeing the CDC, something they was not seeing before. So when you're saying these people are the worst of the worst, how can the worst of the worst who are enemies come together? That's unheard of. But over a period of time within them SHUs, people didn't realize the blacks, the whites, and the Mexicans, we shared canteen. We shared packages. And these people was enemies. So if enemies can come together and be more humane, be cordial, be respectful, how can they be the worst of the worst? The worst of the worst is the people who are gonna try to create the chaos. And that's what they want. They want chaos. They want people to breed chaos. We was no longer a part of that community of breeding chaos. We was about that community that was trying to bring about change, and not necessarily change for ourselves, but change for the next generation. We're proof that we are not the worst of the worst, because right now we're here. If we was the worst of the worst, we would still be behind the walls. You still got people who have that criminal mentality. You still have people who want to engage in criminal, and they promote criminal activity. But we're not that people. We never were that people who promoted criminal activity. We always opposed the criminal gang mentality. And they got groups now talking about, a group called the CGA, Criminals and Gangs Anonymous. They oppose the criminal mentality. We've been promoting Christian identity since we first came to prison. So this is something that they're promoting themselves right now. But do they give us the recognition for it? No. Because then they had to admit they was wrong. So that right now, they're trying to control that narrative about what was happening behind the walls and why it was happening. But now we're trying to control the narrative to get the truth out here. So people really know what was happening behind them prison walls and the things that we was doing to bring about change. And I'm saying, when we say Black Lives Matters, even doing what Black Lives Matters, a lot of people, to me, they misconstrued the word Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter don't mean that we only concerned about us. No, that's not what Black Lives Matter means. Black Lives Matter means that Black Lives Matter too. It's that one word, too. If our lives matter too, that's all we trying to get the message out there to people. Our lives matter too. And when you let our lives matter too, we're not excluding nobody else. You know what I'm saying? We realize when blacks commit crimes against other blacks, they say, well, y'all don't even love each other. You know, some of us might not do love each other, but the point is, when we commit crimes against each other, the system hold us responsible. They arrest us for that. They convict us for that. But when police, racist white people kill black people, they're not held accountable. If they was held accountable, then what would be the problem today? If police was being held accountable, we would not be out in the street protesting Black Lives Matter. Because the point is they're being held accountable, but when they're not being held accountable, we gotta do something. And that's what we're doing in the streets today. You know, we're trying to promote that scenario that, hey, Black Lives Matter too. And once people realize that our lives matter too, things are gonna change. So I'm saying that the resistance, resistance is not futile. So even though I thought the hunger strike was not gonna work, it worked.
Yeah.
So another brother told me, he said, a solution is better than no solution. So we gotta do something. If it don't work, we gotta come with something new. And that's what we're striving to do. Come with something new, create a new scenario, a new format, a new foundation, and we're trying to build upon it and continue to build. So we ain't gonna never take that resistance as futile. We know resistance can prevail. Like I said, I came to prison in 76. And the racial tension was already there.
It was already there.
Yeah. And it's one thing I do know that back in the 60s, the Nation of Islam was one of the main defenders of the black community behind the prison wall. You know what I'm saying? They're the ones who brought unity to blacks, you know, during that period. And a lot of blacks, they identified with that unity, but not necessarily the religious aspect of it. And then they created their own groups. You know what I'm saying? So at that time, you know, you had, you know, Nazis behind these prison walls. You had Nazi guards behind these prison walls, you know, with just a high school diploma. You know what I'm saying? Who was not respecting blacks. You know, when WL and them was waging struggle against the system, you know, they was not waging struggle because people that was necessarily part of their group. They was waging struggle behind atrocities that was being committed against blacks behind prison walls. You know, they had a brother, I think his name was Billingsley.
Yes.
The guards wanted to restrict self-extraction from the cell, so they gassed him. You know, they know the man had asthma, bronchitis, they gassed him, you know, in his cell. You know, his brother died. You know what I'm saying? So brothers rebelled against stuff like that. And then you have, you know, racist whites, you know what I'm saying, who promote that type of activity and they gain favors from the administration. You know, the guard might tell them, hey, to the whites, you know, we need this guy removed from this prison environment. And these whites would carry out the mission of these racist guards. But there were certain brothers behind the wall, they was not accepting that. You know what I'm saying? So they were telling brothers, hey, no, we need to unite. We need to stand up and confront our enemy. And that's what they did. They stood up and confronted their enemy. When WL was killed on the first day of him going to a group yard. And people have to realize when WL was killed and Sweet Jug Miller and Cleveland Evans was killed, the guard fired 4 shots. He fired 4 shots. And with 4 of them bullets, he killed 3 blacks. 1 bullet, he shot 1 white in the leg. Was there a weapon being used? No. It was a fist fight on the yard. So you got to realize that was by design. And at that time, WL had a case in the courts challenging the shoe condition, challenging the hold. So once he was removed from that equation, the challenge to the hold was no longer existing, as far as the court was concerned. But I'm saying, like, so people got to realize what the guards was doing to blacks who were trying to mobilize and organize the black community, you know what I'm saying, to become more progressive and to gravitate away from the criminal gang mentality. The system did not support that. You know what I'm saying? It's a system was supportive of rehabilitation. These are the type of individuals they wanted on the main line. You know what I'm saying? You don't want the so-called criminals on the main line. You want people on the main lines, I'm saying, who's trying to change people and change people for the better. But the point is, that was not conducive to their program because the prison system is a racist program. Like you said earlier about the CDC, you know, we call it the KDK, you know, the California Department of Correction. You know what I'm saying? We got to put the K in there. You know what I'm saying? Because the point is, the KDK, you know, it deals with the Ku Klux
And the
Klan.
R is just a
You know
myth.
what I'm saying? So the point is, you know, there was no R back then.
Yeah.
The R came later, so it was
still
the
a
myth
myth.
back then and the myth today. You know what I'm saying? So you have to realize the system has always breeded dissension. They promoted dissension. But the point is, if you cannot promote dissension amongst a race, then the other races have to come into play. So that's what we was confronted with. Like, you know, during this time when he first came to prison, it was way worse than when I came to prison. You know what I'm saying? Because, you know, either encouraging the whites to commit crimes, they also armed the whites to commit crimes against us. You know what I'm saying? So in this time period, while you're in the hole, they might open your door and they might let 3 or 4 whites to come out on the tip with arms to attack you. So part of our program when we first came to prison, we had to learn how to defend ourselves. So we went through a physical training program, a self-defense program to defend ourselves. So we had to defend ourselves the best way that we can. You know what I'm saying? But during this period, it was way worse than when I came. And a lot of brothers did not withstand that test that he had went through.
Now, I'm just gonna speak on something you asked me about the courts. And just like the brother said, on that day when they killed WL and 2 other brothers, that was ruled justifiable homicide. And George's actions, what he was allegedly accused of killing the police, was a direct result of what happened on that day with that justifiable homicide. How can that, what they did, be considered justifiable homicide? And this is what they're accused this brother is doing. This is first-degree murder because it's a guard laying here bleeding. But over here, you got 3 brothers laying here bleeding from head wounds, chest wounds. That's justifiable homicide. So I say, if that's justifiable homicide, then we got to look at the same thing. When we represent our people, it's just I feel justified in anything that I do to represent my people.
That's right. Another thing you need to look at, back in 1800, I believe 70 something, could have been 85, when the Dred Scott decision came down. In a nutshell, the Dred Scott decision, it clarified that the black man does not have no rights that the white man is bound to respect. So that's being applied today. You know, we have no rights that they're obligated to respect. And that's what we're still fighting against. You know, and that's how this system views us. You know what I'm saying? So yes, we do got to stand up for Miami the best way that we can.
All they've done is modify some of them old racist policies. They haven't changed them. They just modify them. They shove it under the table. You still got double standards in the judicial system. You got double standards before these parole board and prison system. And even when we go to a classification committee, that's a double standard. I sat in Pelican Bay prison for 22 years in Pelican Bay. I had 0 points, but yet still I wasn't getting transferred to no level 1, no level 2. Now, even if you look at prisons today, when you go to the level 4s, pretty much Mexicans and blacks. You go down to the level 2s, the level 1s, you're gonna see the population's gonna get a whole lot brighter. Go up to the level 4s, it's Mexicans and blacks. You know, they can justify it any way they want to, but when the truth is that the racism and the double standards are still very much in existence in the prison system.
Right. You know, one thing that's always inspired me and impressive, I asked you this question before, and I always ask each one of you that period of time in the SHOE program. Like I pointed out, SHOE stands for Security Housing Unit. And what the situation is, they lock people down, literally lock people down for 23 hours a day with 1 hour for whatever activity that it is, and that consists of in the case. Sometimes if there's a threat, you know, so-called threat that they tend to use, you don't even get programmed for that day. How is it under not only those conditions, it's just being confined all day like that, but the constant threats that went with that, you know, the fact of, you know, you guys could have been, you were dealing with a racist guard, they could have, you know what I'm saying, that were totally against what you guys did. How did you survive the constant fact of being the threat of death threats, with them constantly dealing with your food and not giving you your meal and things? I mean, a lot of people go crazy on this. That's enough to drive people crazy. And I know for a fact some people that were in those conditions actually did go crazy. How were you guys able to maintain? I'm looking at both of you right now. I know both of you real well. You know what I'm saying? Honestly, healthy, sane people here. How was you able to maintain? Physically, we know, we heard how the exercise was. How was you able to maintain the sanity though?
I think that goes back to the soul of a man.
Yeah.
When you look at where we came from, because when I look at my ancestors that came long before me, they survived things that, and even regardless of what you think I might have went through, my ancestors came over being chained. They went through all kind of diseases. They were tarred and feathered and whooped, and they continue. Otherwise, we wouldn't be having this conversation sitting at this table had they not been survivors. So for me, it was just a question of reaching inside and drawing on all of that love and respect that came long before I even existed. When we're talking about Denmark, Bessie, Nat Turner, and my own blood that's running through these veins, I'm going to survive regardless of what they bring.
Speaking of which, I'm glad you said it about you want to.
Well, Henry George once said one thing. He said, "You would never count me amongst the broken men." And when I came to Christian, I realized that the system was waging a war of attrition against us. They was trying to wear us down. They was trying to beat us down. But a lot of us had the necessary nerve to withstand that test. So like, when I'm experiencing the atrocities in the hole, you know what I'm saying, my mind was still active. My body was still active. So I'm thinking about what they're doing to me. I'm thinking about what I can do to counter this. You know what I'm saying? I'm never gonna give up hope that, hey, this is my last day on earth. You know, because I'm saying is, as long as I'm in the fight, I'm in the fight. So a lot of people going kind of crazy in the hole. A lot of them, you got to realize they came to prison handicapped. You know what I'm saying? Some came to prison mentally handicapped, some came to prison physically handicapped, but all of us did not come handicapped. You know, some of us came with a sense of direction, a sense of purpose, a sense of pride. You know what I'm saying? And it's my love for my people that kept me strong. You know what I'm saying? The love for my family that kept me strong. You know what I'm saying? Because if I could not be strong, how can my family be strong? You know, I got out the hole the first time, not the first time, I got the hole in 2000 after doing 17 years. And like he said, when I first got out, I didn't make it off of orientation. You know, I'm in orientation, they decided, hey, it's time for me to go back. And that's because they said they went through my file and they found gang literature in my file. You know, what gang literature they found? I had a book by a guy who was on death row. I had a letter from an attorney from another guy who they considered to be affiliated, seeking legal help. I had a drawing of a dragon that was copied out of a TV guide that was on a plaque. And they said I was in possession, and they said in my phone book I had gang addresses. So I say, no, I had these in the hole. You know, I didn't get cut loose in the hole because I was a debriefer. I did not get released from the hole because they considered me a dropout. They released me in the hole because they said I had no gang activity in my file. And see, gang activity is supposed to be criminal activity. Not that you belong to a group, but they tried to bring me back. But when they tried to bring me back, my sisters found out about it, and it hurted them. So I can deal with going back, but the pain that my family had to suffer me going back, you know, they trying to figure out Lorenzo, because my name, you know, my birthday was Lorenzo. Lorenzo, you know, why are they doing this to you? Why are they doing this? So I felt their pain. So the pain of my people is what keeps me strong, because I got to stay strong for my people. Behind the walls, my people experienced atrocities. I'm saying they experienced the torment. And a lot of my writers, when I first came to prison, it was not because of something that I had done. It was something somebody else had done, and I felt the need to come to their defense. Because I did not put myself in predicaments to be disrespected or be misused or abused. But when I see my people being misused or abused, I have to come to their aid. Now that don't mean that my people was always correct in the things that they were doing that brought about this abuse, but when you're dealing with the prison system, they're supposed to be professionals. You know, a lot of people in prison, they are considered criminals. Criminals engage in criminal activity. So professionals don't supposed to engage in criminal activity. When you see the police out there beating, stomping somebody, that's criminal activity. They're supposed to be professional. They're supposed to restrain you. They're supposed to hold you. They're supposed to arrest you. But they don't supposed to commit atrocities in the process. They commit atrocities in the process. And when they commit atrocities in the process and the people sees this, then the people respond. And to me, they're justified in responding. You know what I'm saying? I used to tell people I believe in people's justice. You know what I'm saying? People tell you, what is people's justice? I mean, people taking a stand to correct the wrongs that are being committed before their eyes. You know what I'm saying? When you said talk to the American Revolution was based on what? Basically, the British was misusing them. So they took a stand. You know what I'm saying? When you see these wars being committed around the world, you know, it's so-called people taking a stand because they feeling abused, and they consider justified in doing it. So why are we not justified in doing the things that we do when we're being abused? You know what I'm saying? Even in their own constitution, they say when these rules that govern this government, you know what I'm saying, you know, go beyond their duty, you know, they say the people have a right to change it. You know, the Constitution says that. So we got a right to change it because it's not acting in our best interest. You know, who are they to criticize us for the things that we do?
Also, the things that we believe, the things that we're being taught. Myself, I never got any further than 8th grade in formal education in school. I was educated in prison. But the thing is, my formal education taught me that George Washington was a great man. But my brothers in prison taught me that this was a slave master. My formal education taught me that Mount Rushmore, these are great leaders. But real, true education in reality tells me that these men are anything but great. Where Christopher Columbus found America, this is what they taught me in school. So miseducation, I think, has led to the downfall of a lot of brothers that had the potential to be great, but they were miseducated informally. And so when a brother like me or you or somebody comes and tells them the truth, you pose a threat. But I'm not telling you nothing but the truth. You know, and I refuse to give you anything but the truth. If you want the lies and the bullshit, go over there. They'll give you that, but I'm gonna give you the real. And that being said, we pose a threat because we're teaching true education.
I don't know, I just want to point out something that you were saying. It was showing that the type of non-evidence that was used to justify retaining a person in a SHU program for an indefinite period of time. And those of y'all are familiar with the Patriot Act, you can remember when Bush passed the Patriot Act in so-called combating terrorism. The same type of criteria that was used to hold a person for an indefinite period of time with no type of trial, with no due process. These are the exact same conditions that they do prior to the Patriot Act. In prison, there was already, you know what I'm saying, in essence, a Patriot Act that was going on, you know what I'm saying, to justify locking people away for a long time. My next question is, part of our theme this year at Black Office is remembering our elders. And we were speaking when I opened up today, prior to you guys getting here, we were talking about how people forget, in this society, we forget about the elders. And so if we're doing it out here in the free world, how much more we'll do so, you know what I'm saying, to the ones that's locked up. Me, myself, my elders mean the world to me. I was one of those ones that always appreciated elders, you know what I'm saying, when I was gone, because of the fact that my grandparents passed away when I was locked up, and my mother just recently came out of a coma. That's why so much effort and energy is being put into my mother, because I know once she's gone, the things that she has for me and to teach me, you know what I'm saying, me goes with her. I want you guys to touch on the importance of not only having elders around, you know what I'm saying, but to remember the elders that's specifically in prison right now.
I think it's really important to remember Brother Michelle McGee came to prison in 1962 for marijuana possession. 62, mind you. I was 12 years old. I'm 70 today. This brother's still in prison right now.
For marijuana possession.
Well, that's what he originally came for. The crime that they committed him for in Marin County. The evidence is very shaky. But the brother's still in prison today from 1962 on marijuana possession. The brother I told you about earlier, Paul Jones, he was there when I came in 1970. He's still there. I've been home twice. I came on a very serious crime the first time. I came back to prison several years later with a murder, did 38 years and got out, and this brother's still there on some shaky, flimsy evidence going before this parole board and they ain't talking to him about he's a troublemaker on the other. My confidential sources said this, confidential sources said that. But these brothers are still being held to answer based on this type of documentation. It ain't even about evidence. These are fabrications of criminal conduct. There's no evidence of criminal conduct, but they're still going to board years later.
So yeah, that is something to remember. I did not know. I've been knowing about Michelle McGee for a long time, and I didn't know that. And despite whatever happened afterwards, the fact is he was locked up for a crime that he should have never even been serving that amount of time. So anything that came out afterwards is, they created that. That's something that you call for locking him up unjustified. Anyway, what about you, brother? You want to touch on the elders, the importance of remember the ones that's, locked, the elders altogether, period, because we don't limit ourselves to specific.
When you're dealing with elders of my generation that are still behind the wall, I'm just a little bit older than me. They're not much older than me, they're just a little bit older than me. And I said earlier about when George said you never count me amongst the broken man, those are the elders that I respect. You know what I'm saying? The elders that I looked up to, because they have never deviated in their conviction. They never deviated within their belief. You know what I'm saying? They're still standing as men. They're still standing as principal men. And they are motivators of people whoever they come in contact with. You know what I'm saying? They're not generators of chaos. They're not generators of violence. You know what I'm saying? They're generators of trying to get people to stand up and see things for what they is. Because, today there's a lot of gang members behind prison walls. And they try to get them youngsters out of that mentality. They share with them literature, they share with them history. They try to give them a sense of purpose. And a lot of these elders, who have stood firm all these years, they still respect it. You know what I'm saying? A lot of brats gravitate on, like I say, we don't use the N-word. In no fashion we don't use the N-word. And these youngsters know we don't use the N-word. So when they're around us, they don't use the N-word. So it brings about change with them. We used to tell youngsters sometimes, like, try not saying in for 1 week. And a few of them came back after a week, they said, you know what? Now I see how ugly that word is. Because when you part of it, you don't see it. But when you step back and start observing and being objective, you start seeing things a little bit more different. So the elders that are behind the wall, they are not negative influence around the people. And a lot of the elders, they're respected by all races. A lot of the elders, they're even respected by the CEOs.
Right.
Because our elders are respectable people. They are principled people. They are not about the BS. You know what I'm saying? So quite naturally, they're getting the respect. And I look at my elders of the past. You know what I'm saying? And I look at the elders, I'm saying, that made the ultimate sacrifice. And I try to understand what they went through. What type of hardship could I have withstand that test? Could I have made it this far? Because I was always told the only person die old is a slave. You know what I'm saying? So I thought maybe I was supposed to die young. Because the point is, they said, for us to live this long, we must have wasn't doing what we supposed to be doing. And me personally, I feel we always been doing what we supposed to be doing, because the point is, we giving our people a sense of what life is all about. You know what I'm saying? We used to do cadence, and one of our cadence said, with Harriet Tubman still around, building railroads underground. That's what we feel. Harriet Tubman is still around. You know what I'm saying? Her spirit still lives on. And she was an elder. You know what I'm saying? Freddie Douglass, he done a thing about the 4th of July. In his spiel, he said the 4th of July is our nightmare. While they celebrate their independence, we look at the 4th of July That's our nightmare because we still was held in bondage. You know, Frederick Douglass is one of our elders. He died of, he lived a long, prolonged life. So the point is, all of our elders are not slaves. You know, we can live a long, fruitful life and still be a part of the resistance. Frederick Douglass still lives. You know what I'm saying? We always say Marcus Garvey laid the line, revolution in our time. The spirit of Marcus Garvey still lives. He might not, physical presence might not be here no more, but the spirit lives. You know what I'm saying? He did not live to be in his 80s and 90s, but he lived to be of fruitful age. His spirit still lives. So our elders, you know, I pay tribute to my elders all the time. You know what I'm saying? And it's them type of elders that I want to emulate. Now for those who died at the early age, you know, I understand that, hey, sometimes our sacrifices are made much more extreme and much more sooner. And sometimes our sacrifices are made at the end. But sacrifice is what we're all about. And we're gonna always sacrifice for the best of it. So our elders, you know what I'm saying, you know, whether they're, you know, just a few years older than us or a few years younger than us, because I even use youngsters as being elders. You know, I can see a young brother like this brother right here. I say, check this out, bro. If one of your homeboys or one of your friends was to come here and he's 5 years younger than you, what is your responsibility to him? And his responsibility is to lift him up. You know what I'm saying? To educate him. I said, now, you know what that means? That means you are elder. Because it is our elder responsibility to teach. You know what I'm saying? To uplift our people. So we can't just put an age on the word elder. You know, elders come in all forms. You know what I'm saying? So I praise all our elders. You know what I'm saying? And like I said, Satsakura, you know what I'm saying? I love that sister. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, to me, Satsakura, we say Satsakura is strong and firm. Liberation on her terms. You know, she didn't get freed because they chose to free her. You know what I'm saying? She freed, I'm saying, because the people freed her. You know what I'm saying? So now she's living in freedom in another country. But the point is, she's still uplifting people. So, you know, I look at her as being one of my she-roles. You know what I'm saying? Because the sister is still active. She's still standing strong. So our elders, you know what I'm saying, you know, yes, a lot of them has passed away, but some of our elders are still with us. So what we should be doing right now is paying homage to them as well.
I would like to say, like you pointed out, I'm gonna go for another way for a minute just to make this point. I like the fact you pointed out Harriet Tubman and Asada Shakur, because that's another thing we talk about. So many incidents that occur with prison. It seems when the way we talk about it, a male image always come up. And the sisters, you know, racism is not gender biased. It's far from it. So just as many sisters, you know what I'm saying, played a part into helping with the resistance movement, and just as many sisters, you know what I'm saying, suffered as well as the brothers too, or just as many women as well as the men too. So I just wanted to make that point. With regards to the elders, I want to say that, you know, we always say if you don't know where you came from, you don't know where you're going. And I agree with you, that's what they are to teach. That's what the elders are. They're a beacon of a guiding light, because it's not only who we came from, we can draw from their experiences, both their successes and their mistakes, and it helps us to be able to map out, you know what I'm saying, a path to the future. And the thing about it this year, within them elders, there's just a vast reservoir of nothing but knowledge. And when them people leave and we fail to get that knowledge, we lose that knowledge forever. And I'm gonna just go to a minor point for is, you know, everybody loves their grandmother's cooking. You know, a lot of, you don't love it all. There's that one thing that nobody can make like your grandmother make. And there's certain things I eat nobody can make, but my auntie, she happened to pick it up. I said, you got that from grandma. You know what I'm saying? If she didn't ever pick that up, you know what I'm saying, I would have never, you know what I'm saying, to be able to enjoy that same taste again. So that's to me the importance of, you know, remembering the elders, and so we can have them to give us the things that they have to give us. But you'd be surprised what they have for you if you just go sit down with them one time. I mean, I looked at my grandparents when they were being, you know, they're religious people, so any negative image coming about them didn't, you know, was like off the table. But then they told me about their life experiences and where the journey led them. They said, although it started right here, this is how it ended. You know, then these are the things you go to. And we'll know, you know, with elders around us tell us that we'll go to them things, we'll be able to face a lot of difficulties we deal with life. or every day because we already have somebody that's been through that told us that these things are gonna happen. So to me, just to point that out, that's what I want to say, it's important to remember the elders this year. That's why it's important to me to remember the elders, like you say, they are the wise amongst us. It's open up to the floor if anybody, excuse me, Minister King has just came in, you might wanna,
Oh man, I mean,
pass it over to you, brother, let you continue on if you want to.
I just want to say thank you all for having me here, and I'm honored to be among greatness. And when the brother said, "Count me among the unbroken," that's a torch that us as youngsters, I love to carry that, because when I hear the elders talk, I think of them being walking encyclopedias. You know, many a times when I was inside and I used to see reactionaries on the yard, you always had to have a go-to man, a medium, to mediate things, right? And a lot of times the elders be like, look, they may be playing chords or something, like, you all know how to handle that. Because it's already established what's right and what's wrong. So when I hear the elders talk, I always think about being on the side of righteousness. So coming out here, when I came home in July, it was a lot of other organizations. You know, you got other organizations that was doing the work. But I was like, man, who rooted to still fighting for those elders just behind the wall? You had other organizations, but then some kind of fell off because you had a greater force that was out here doing a particular work. But then you got a particular class, though, who didn't fall off, who didn't corrode, snitch, or die. So when I came home, man, it really wasn't about a job, and then I just felt the job was to continue to fight that good fight for the brothers behind the walls, man. You know, so yeah, just I'm glad that they out here and they arrive, and I feel like I arrived with you all. I just feel that energy right now. And one of the things inside also too was when we think about a lot of our fallen soldiers, our heroes and sheroes, a lot of times CDC small r was arbitrarily stigmatizing us under the STG and whatnot. But I sitting down with some of them elders, I came to believe that you got this thing called a religious land use. So I'm sitting up in here and I see all this culture in here, right? So when you go up inside the chapel, bro, we gotta remember, we got the right to assemble and be who we are right there. Even if we objectively subjected to reprisals or campaign harassment, you still got a constitutional right to be who you are inside of there. So I just say that to say, it's time to be brave. And it's time to be brave in a way where we go out here and take our curriculums and put it in schools and go out here and pass it inside of the zines and whatnot so they can wake up, because a lot of these youngsters don't got a worldview like these elders. So when they don't have a worldview, it's like they lost and they dealing with a menacide. So yeah, man, that's all I wanted to add to the conversation. That I'm happy to be among greatness.
Speaking of which, and it'll be open for anybody that want to ask questions. There happen to be, speaking of resistance, the other young lady amongst us. What's your name?
Jordan.
I can hear you.
Jordan.
Jordan, there's a young lady amongst us, and she's right now fighting the campaign in the Folsom Unified School District to basically demilitarize the schools, because the police presence, basically have police is it at every campus or just the high schools?
It's on every campus.
It's at every campus in the entire district. They have police presence, and it's her fight to eradicate that police presence there because of the threat that such a thing poses. You know, you guys been in resistance, you know, and you know how to go the distance and to get the results. But what type of encouragement would you have, would you have for her as an elder?
I would tell her just dare, keep on pushing. Don't give up, because you're gonna meet people at the door. They're gonna be there telling you that you can't do this. The law says this. But go with what's in your heart. If you feel that this is the fight for you, stay down.
I was gonna say, like, when I was in high school, I'm going to summer school one time. So I was late to school. So I tried to go to school. The security guard told me I couldn't come to school because I was late. So I wanted to go to school. I try to go around them. So they took me down, took me to jail, saying I was disturbing the peace for trying to go to school. But I realized today, though, what we need to do as a people is, if we don't want the police in our schools, then we need to put our own little thing together to defend our schools. You know, and then once we do that, then we can let the administration know we don't need police here. You know what I'm saying? This is our school. We're willing to take steps to the plate and defend it. So you got to show them that, hey, we're not willing to accept police in the school. And you say you got that for our security. You know, we don't need you because we can secure this school ourselves. So you might want to try to do that. You know, certain communities got community watch. And that community watch, they must be the safeguarders of their community. If you get enough youth together, you know, on that school grounds, you know what I'm saying, demanded that, hey, y'all allow y'all to defend that school, then you be in a better position to have that demilitarization, you know what I'm saying, removed. But you should never give up just because they're there. You know what I'm saying? You still should be you still should demand the things that you have coming. And when you see the police acting in the wrong way, then you need to report it. You know what I'm saying? Because the point is, I don't feel they're there to protect you. I feel they're there, basically there, you know what I'm saying, to intimidate people, to create a hostile environment, have people be more not trusting of one another. You know what I'm saying? You should not be dependent on the police to protect you. You know what I'm saying? Y'all should be dependent on one another to protect you. Because I have a thing about self-discipline. You know, self-discipline is the best discipline. You know, some people say, well, collective discipline. Well, if the collective is not there, then there's no discipline. So it's contingent on the things that you're doing. You know what I'm saying? And once you start doing the right thing, it can remove that handicap from your environment. So, you know, stay in the fight, you know, do the things that, you know, that y'all need to do.
I just want to say from another standpoint, you know what I mean, just continue to dare to struggle and continue to dare to win. You're not, I watched you when you do the event last week. You're a natural born leader. You're a leader by every definition of the word. They're gonna look at you, and they're gonna come up with various ways to try to, you know, stifle you, or to get you to compromise and get you to sell out, or to get you to sell your people out and give up that fight. Like both my brothers say, no, you know what I mean, get beyond all of that. You heard people that had harder struggle. We're talking about people who went as far as having a hunger strike to get out of a situation where they were locked down 24 hours a day. And so, you know, just pick up that. He drew from the spirit of people that came before him. I just tell you to, you know, do this. I encourage you to do the same thing. You know, where you feel like you're gonna fall off, you know what I mean, or you feel like draw from that strength, and you know what I'm saying, and keep conscious, you know, that what you're up against, and you know that there were others that came before you were up against that, and they were able to, you know, triumph, and you'll be triumphant as well. And that's what I just want to tell you. I just had, you know, I was wrong for not mentioning, because you are here and you brought your issue up, and so your issue do need to be known, because it's a very valid one, and your woman too. So
And I say too that this is exactly the type of leadership that we need in our communities today.
Yeah.
Indigenous leadership.
Yeah.
That's from that community.
Yeah.
We don't need somebody like police to come from Davis or out somewhere else to police our community. We need people that's from this community, that's of this community, that's got blood ties to this community, become leaders, to step up and voice their opinions in this community. We don't need these security guards probably don't even live in that community. You know, they occupy in the school. And here we have someone that's from that neighborhood, from that school, that's speaking up, and I think that's a beautiful thing. And all of us in this room and in this state should support.
And we do.
Yeah.
We do.
But another thing I wanted to bring to the table, when we talk about the elders, I don't want to put her on blast, but we got a sister here that I wanted to bring her up, her name, Marie, because during our hunger strike, and I think y'all remember, it wasn't that many brothers and sisters there. She was on the front line. And it was profound, because I used to read it in the baby. I'm like, man, bro, we got one sister there and she holding it down for all of us. And I think that's a moment though. We in that moment right now where a lot of us is spilling out here, we paralleling our programs, and we know that the woman, without the woman, there's no time. You know, so the woman has always been the backbone for everything we have. So, you know, I just wanted to thank my sister for even coming up here, sharing that energy.
Appreciate
You know, but yeah, man, you know, this is my first time really getting to break bread with you, big bro. I'm hearing you and it wake my spirit. And then I hear the other day, Jameer, he broke down his piece. And I'm looking like, oh, this is where we at? We in a hole, we just built new pyramids in this century. So I'm like, okay, there's nothing we can't do.
Wow.
So we gotta continue to can't stop, won't stop,
Wow.
can't be stopped, you know? So, yeah, thank y'all for inviting me here.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Realize one thing, Jonathan Junkin took a stand. You know what I'm saying? And it was him. You know, it was not nobody else but him. And he was 17 years old. He was a teenager who was fighting for liberation. And he felt the need to take up arms to try to liberate them brothers from their courthouse. To get the word out, I'm saying that there was being injustice being committed. He did not go there with the intent to try to hurt nobody, kill nobody, but he knew resistance only understand one thing, and that is force. So he brought force. He brought weapons to try to liberate, and he was planning on going to a radio station and demanding the release of his brother, who was George Jackson. So he took a stand. And that inspired a whole lot of youngsters to see that, hey, if this young brother can do this, they can do it as well. It motivated elders to take a stand. Because you got this young man to come forward to take a stand of that gravity to try to bring about change. And it made people say, what am I doing to bring about change? So what I'm saying is, Jonathan Jackson, you know what I'm saying, you know, we call him the man child. You know what I'm saying? George referred to him as the man child. Because he was not a child. He was a man. And it inspired a lot of brothers behind the wall. It inspired a lot of young brothers behind the wall to take a stand. You know what I'm saying? And that's what we need, people to take a stand. You know what I'm saying? James McLean was committed to the struggle. William Christmas was committed to the struggle. Michelle McGee was committed to the struggle. You know, they was offered the opportunity of freedom. Who's gonna turn down an opportunity at freedom? So yes, they did take a stand. In the course they took a stand, you know what I'm saying, lives was lost. It was not at their hands. It was the CDCR, they had no policy, no hostage. You take hostages, the CDCR will gun you down, and everybody who is there. So everybody who was killed that day was killed by the CDCR. And see, and they said, well, if Johnson had not done what he did, it would have never happened. If Johnson had not done what he done, the changes that was being demanded would not have been, the foundation have not been laid to the extent that it was laid that day. And that foundation was built upon. And it showed the CDC for who they really were. The CDC does not concern themselves about other people.
Right.
So the safety of the people is supposed to come first.
Right.
You know, they got to think about insurance policy. You go rob a bank, the tellers don't supposed to resist. They supposed to give you the money and don't put nobody's in harm. Do whatever the people say do it, but don't put you in harm's way. But the CDCR says differently. In other words, you put somebody in harm's way, so be it. So it showed you the true face of the CDCR. And it showed people the true face of the CDCR. So yes, lives were lost that day. But the point is, Johnson Jackson took a stand that day. You know what I'm saying? And it's a stand that a lot of people was in need of emulating. You know what I'm saying? Johnson Jackson was not a violent person, but sometimes people have to be violent to get their point across. You know what I'm saying? Because sometimes if you be passive, people have a tendency to not respect you. And it shouldn't be that way, but sometimes they don't respect you. Or when you take a stand, they say, well, he's somebody's not to be messed with. You know what I'm saying? Because the point is, if we was passive doing slavery, we'd still be slaves. We had to resist. You know what I'm saying? I respect Nat Turner. Some of you, they criticize Nat Turner because of the things that he had done. Some of you criticize John Brown. John Brown was a white man. But John Brown was about the struggle. John Brown, children was about the struggle. John Brown fought about the liberation of Africans from slavery. So I respect them type of individuals that took a stand. You know what I'm saying? Wish they didn't have to take them type of stands, but the point is, if you don't take a stand, what type of changes can we expect to occur? Are they just gonna give it to us because they choose to? You know what I'm saying? No, they're not gonna give it to us. And we already know the 13th Amendment is a farce, because I'm saying the 13th Amendment is still sanctioned slavery. You know, I would, like you said earlier about, we taught in these books that the 13th Amendment freed the slaves. So I thought we was free, but I never read that fine print. You know, except when duly convicted of a felony, you know what I'm saying, your rights can be violated to the extent that you serve duty slave. You know, it's in the Constitution, it's always been there. But was we taught that? Did we see that? No. So I'm saying, you know, there's certain things that need to be taught. There's certain things that need to be learned. You know what I'm saying? We should not just criticize something because something happened, because the point is we gotta understand why it happened in the first place. On the surface, it might look like it was wrong. You know what I'm saying? Somebody burglarized your house and tried to rape your wife, and you come to her aid and you commit mortal injury to that individual because, oh man, you used excessive force. But the point is, why did you use excessive force? Excessive force was needed. So don't condemn it. You know, I know a guy who got out of prison was a serial rapist. California didn't want him, so he sent him to another state. So he went to another state, he tried to commit another rape. As he was running away from the house, two brothers seen him running down the street, and a sister screaming. So the two brothers jumped on him and almost beat him to death. They charged the two brothers with attempted murder. But the community came to their aid. The community rallied around these brothers. That was people's justice that day. Because the point is, they was defending their community from a serial rapist that California didn't want and threw them to another state. So did they use excessive force? You know, for some say they did, some say they didn't use enough. So it's subjective, but the point is, they came to the defense of their community. They came to the defense of the sisters in their community. The guy was a serial rapist and he was not gonna stop. And when he left California, they said he was believed to have committed over 200 rapes. So these are the things that we need to look at. You know what I'm saying? Just don't judge things on the surface, just try to look deep inside why things occur. You know what I'm saying? At times, certain things are needed to be done, and there's certain people out there that's willing to take that stand.
That's pretty much to give it some pressure time. I just want to end on this note we heard about all the courageous moves and actions that was taken about, as you know, Black August, that was been taken by brothers came before. You know, Black August is a recognition of the freedom fighters, beginning with the Free Day, because the concept of Black August did, despite what some would want to think or whatever, Black August did come from the prisoners. They came up with the concept. It was through their research and through their studies of educating themselves, they found out that August was significant for numerous freedom fighting actions that had been taking place throughout thousands of years or centuries and all over different parts of the world. And so we understand the importance of that. We understand the importance that the elders play in our life. You know, we don't know where we come from, we don't know where we're going, and they are the wise amongst us, so we must cherish that. And I just want to end with what the brother said, you know what I'm saying, in his when he was just giving his dissertation, that when you look at the situation around you and you see it for what it is, and you know that change needs to be made, ask yourself, what am I doing to bring about change?